Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Sabra Cook and I'm a professional racing driver as well as a mechanical engineer. So a little backstory on me is I was literally born and raised in the world of motorsports. So my dad used to race motocross and supercross professionally, and obviously he and my mother didn't want my brother and I racing motorcycles. So we got into karting just before I was about 8 years old. But I was also literally born into racing. My parents used to run supercross events. And the day of the race, my mom literally goes into labor, and instead of going to the racetrack, they had to go to the hospital and gave birth to me on Supercross Sunday. I also was one of those weird kids that likes school, specifically math and science. So what did I do? I went to school to be an engineer. I karted from about 8 years old to 15 years old, was just kind of like local state races, won the state championships like 6 times, and then finally progressed into national racing when I was about 15 years old. I won 3 national championships and 3 world championships. Karting will always be my roots, and I really love to go back to that, especially shifter karting. And now, this year, I actually won the Kelly Moss scholarship shootout. So that secured me the spot to run with Kelly Moss for the entire season of the Porsche Deluxe Carrera Cup. And Deluxe also awarded me, along with Porsche Motorsports North America, the first female driver development scholarship. So that's a very quick layout of what I have done in the past and how I've gotten where I am today. So I did a Q&A on my Instagram to see what kind of questions you guys had for me to get to know me a little bit better. If you guys aren't following me and you would like to, I'm gonna link my Instagram below so that way you can, and that's the best place honestly to follow me with all of my racing activities and get live updates throughout the race weekends. So first question is, what is my job? So basically, as a racing driver, your job is to optimize the vehicle, the track, and the conditions that you are driving in to be as fast as possible. That's pretty much in a nutshell what a driver does. And then as an engineer, it can mean a lot of things depending on your role. Mostly I've worked in like performance and testing and design. So next question is, who is my favorite F1 driver? Currently, I would probably say Nico Hülkenberg. I don't know if it's because he was there when I was working at Renault and I just really admired, I don't know, the way that he interacted with us. He didn't care if you were, there sweeping the floors or there as an intern. He was just a really genuine, personable guy. So I really like to see that he is back on the grid this year. But as far as all-time favorite, I would have to say Jim Clark. Next question is, what is my dream car? That's such a tough question because there's so many great ones. I would love to have a Koenigsegg 1-to-1, but also McLaren has that new McLaren Sabra. So I feel like just because of obviously naming purposes, it would be kind of neat. And especially because it has like ungodly amounts of horsepower. How do you manage to stay on a healthy diet while traveling so much? Great question. It is extremely hard sometimes. I've had tons of travel experience, and so I've kind of done this by trial and error. If you guys want to know more of like what I would eat during a travel day or a normal day, we can make a whole video about that just to walk you through it. But very quickly overall, to try to stay healthy on travel days is try to get whole, clean, non-processed food if you can. Bringing your own snacks, best tip for sure. I always have like fresh nut mix with me, or I will bring protein powder with me just to kind of fill in gaps whenever I get hungry and maybe I don't have access to that great of food options. And then also, I love to do this, I go to Whole Foods if there is one on the way to the racetrack or like after I land, because I can fill up one of those boxes with like the fresh food that is at Whole Foods and eat that or heat it up, like say if there's only the typical track food available or if there's not a lot of like healthy restaurants near the track. So I'd say those are my top tips on how I try to eat healthy while traveling. So next question is, where does all my long hair go when I race? Does it fit in the helmet? Great question. So basically this is what I will do. I will put my hair behind my ears and then I take it. Some girls will braid their hair, but I honestly don't want to do that sometimes, and it takes a minute, and I'm not that good at braiding. So I literally just twist it like this, and then I will stick it inside of my suit or underneath my Nomex, so it gets tucked like that. And then we have this balaclava, I always say that wrong, balaclava, that we put on over top of our face to protect from our Nomex material is fireproof, just to be clear. So we have to wear Nomex material, all our suit, shoes, gloves, the balaclava is all fireproof. So we put that on, and then I'll put the helmet on over top of the balaclava. So next question is from Dr. Ferguson. He said, when do you come back to MSU to do more cool testing? So if you don't know Dr. Ferguson, he's basically the world's leading research expert on racing drivers. They collect tons of data at MSU with his graduate students, and the data he provides back to us is super helpful because it lets us know what areas we need to improve on or what areas we are good in. I've done 2 testing sessions with him, and so that's what he is asking about, is when I will be coming back to do another evaluation. It's not announced yet, but there might be some cool collaborations going on where a bunch of us will go and do some evals. Next question is, I'd love to hear about your time living in the UK, and will you return soon? I was in the UK because I won the Infinity Engineering Academy in the end of 2018, which then secured me a placement to work for Infinity and then to work for Renault F1. I was living in Milton Keynes, all roundabouts, and then I was living in Bicester when I was working at Renault. So I really liked living in the UK, but I will be honest, I didn't love that I didn't see the sun very much. I got really pale and definitely lacked a lot of vitamin D. So that was maybe not the best part about it. Obviously it's the center of motorsports in the world and the center of F1, as most of the teams are based there. It was an incredible experience, and I'm not planning on going back anytime soon that I know of, but you never know what opportunities can come up. So next question is, single top tip for us amateur weekend racers. Oh, that's a tough one, but I would say keep it simple, right? When you're learning a new skill, like, there's a lot to learn. So take the time to focus on like one thing at a time and develop that skill. I think a really big key that I didn't do, but I wish I'd had, is when I got into car racing, I wish I'd had a dedicated coach with me through all of the development. Like, now I'm very much leaning into having someone that's, you know, helping me progress with my development, but I didn't have that when I first started, and I think it really delayed my progression in the beginning. So I know it can be expensive to have a coach, but it really does make a massive difference if you can have that helping hand when you're starting. So last question is, what is my craziest crash? I would say craziest was probably at this karting street race in California called Modesto. And it was literally a show. Like, it was horrible. There were so many destroyed karts through the whole weekend, and we ended up doing our final because we were the pro class. We were the last ones to race. It was like 2 a.m. in the morning. I'd gotten hit from behind going through this chicane, and there's obviously barriers because it's a street track and there's walls. So like, I got hit and was spun up against like the wall and the barriers, and then the other karts were coming through, and one guy didn't see the yellow flags and then clocked straight into me, like T-boned. And I didn't get the worst of it, even though I did get internal bleeding and whiplash, and I couldn't race the next day because I was like throwing up into the trash can. But he got it worse actually, because he ended up knocking his teeth out. He like ended up hitting a tree. Like, I think he bruised one of his lungs, like broke a rib. Like, it was a whole bad mess. So, but he's okay now, thankfully. He recovered. I would say another crash that wasn't as crazy, but it definitely had a bigger implication for me, is I got hit going into turn 1 at Red Bull Ring in the first race of W Series in 2021. And so unfortunately, because of that accident, I tore my right hip labrum, and my femur was no longer sitting correctly in my hip joint, and I also herniated L5, compressed L1, L2, spinal canal narrowing, and all that together and caused me to have SI joint dysfunction. So it was a big mess, and I was very lucky that I moved to Indianapolis recently. So I got my hip surgery done at Ortho Indy here, and then been going through a very extensive rehab since that last year in the beginning of 2022. So, but I am fully ready to rock and roll again, and I am racing again. So thanks so much to my doctors for letting me get back into doing what I love. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about me. And if there's ever anything else you want to see on this channel coming up, please let me know. I want to make it a portal for you guys to have lots of information and a even greater connection with me. So I really look forward to seeing what we come up with next, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks.